Virgin Atlantic billionaire Sir Richard Branson dropped Spider-Man style 407 feet off the Palms Resort Fantasy Tower last night, all to celebrate his new Virgin Atlantic.
Richard Branson has almost died 75 times. Not in car accidents, not from illnesses, from deliberately putting himself in life-threatening situations to promote his companies. He's been pulled from the ocean after his boat sank. He has crashed hot air balloons into the Atlantic and Pacific. He's been slammed into buildings while bungee jumping off casinos. He's nearly fallen to his death multiple times. And here's the crazy part. It worked. Every near-death experience made him richer. This is the story of the most dangerous marketing strategy in business history. Most CEOs promote their companies with commercials. Richard Branson promotes his by risking his life on camera. Let's talk about why. Richard Branson didn't start out as a daredevil. He started as a dyslexic kid who barely made it through school and launched a music magazine from a church basement in 1968. By his early 20s, he had built Virgin Records into one of the biggest labels in the world, signing the Sex Pistols, the Rolling Stones, and creating a music empire. But in 1984, Branson made a decision that would define the rest of his career. He decided to take on British Airways, one of the most established airlines in the world, with Virgin Atlantic. The problem? Nobody had heard of Virgin Atlantic. British Airways had billions in advertising budget. Virgin had Branson and a camera crew. So Branson did something radical. He turned himself into the product. If people couldn't afford TV commercials, he would do something so outrageous that the news would cover it for free. And the first stunt was insane. In 1985, Branson decided to break the transatlantic powerboat speed record. He commissioned a boat called the Virgin Atlantic Challenger and set out to cross the ocean faster than anyone in history. The boat was essentially a floating rocket designed for speed, not safety. Just 150 miles from his destination, the boat hit rough seas and started taking on water. Within minutes, the Virgin Atlantic Challenger was sinking. Branson and his crew had to be rescued by a Royal Air Force helicopter as the boat disappeared beneath the waves. He nearly drowned promoting an airline. Most people would call that a failure. Branson called it marketing gold. Every newspaper in Britain covered the story. Virgin Atlantic was suddenly front-page news, and Branson learned a critical lesson. Almost dying gets more attention than actually succeeding. A year later, Branson tried again, but this time on water. He succeeded, breaking the transatlantic powerboat record in 1986. But that wasn't enough. In 1987, he decided to become the first person to cross the Atlantic Ocean in hot air balloon. Not because it was practical, but because it was impossible. The Virgin Atlantic Flyer was the largest hot air balloon ever built. Branson and Swedish aeronaut Per Lindstrand took off and successfully crossed the Atlantic at speeds over 130 miles per hour. They had done it. They had made history. Then came the landing. As they tried to land in Scotland, they hit the ground too hard in Northern Ireland. The balloon bounced back up, carried them over the Irish Sea, and started dragging them through the water at 100 miles per hour. Lindstrand jumped out, thinking they were going to die. Branson, still in the balloon, thought Lindstrand had drowned. The balloon kept dragging him through the ocean until it finally deflated. They were rescued by the Royal Navy. Lindstrand spent 2 hours in the freezing water. Both survived, and once again, every news outlet in the world covered Virgin Atlantic. But Branson wasn't done with balloons, not even close. In 1991, Branson and Lindstrand attempted to cross the Pacific Ocean. This time, they accidentally dumped a third of their fuel mid-flight and almost had to abandon the balloon over the ocean. They made it to Canada, 1,800 miles off course, and crash-landed on a frozen lake of -50-degree temperatures, 6 hours stranded in the Arctic. Another rescue, another round of global headlines. Between 1995 and 1998, Branson made multiple attempts to fly around the entire world in a balloon. Every attempt ended in near disaster, but every attempt made Virgin more famous. But the most absurd near-death experience might be Branson's own wedding. In 1989, when he finally married his longtime partner, Joan Templeman, most people would hire a DJ and rent a venue. Branson decided to make his entrance by helicopter, dangling from a landing strut in an all-white suit. The plan was to drop gracefully into the deep end of a pool. What actually happened? Branson miscalculated and dropped into the shallow end, smashing his legs on the bottom. He spent his entire wedding hobbling around in pain, unable to walk properly. He nearly crippled himself at his own wedding. For publicity, even on his wedding, the brand came first.
"407 feet off the Palms Resort."
By 2007, Branson was a billionaire. He didn't need to do stunts anymore. Virgin Atlantic was established. He had multiple successful businesses. But when Virgin America launched a new route to Las Vegas, Branson decided to celebrate by bungee jumping off the Palms Casino, 407 feet straight down. The jump itself went fine, but the winds were heavy that day. As Branson bounced back up, he was slammed into the side of the building twice. The impact shredded his pan, tore fabric off his cloak, and left his arms and legs covered in lacerations. He came up bloody and bruised. A 57-year-old billionaire bleeding from multiple wounds, dangling from a casino in shredded pants, and the media ate it up. Every major outlet covered the stunt. Virgin America's Las Vegas route became one of their most successful launches. So why does a billionaire keep risking his life? Because Branson discovered something most companies never figure out. Attention is worth more than advertising. A 30-second Super Bowl ad costs several $million, and people forget it the next day. Branson crashing a balloon into the Atlantic? Free, and people remember it forever. But there is a deeper strategy here. Every stunt reinforces Virgin's brand identity: rebellious, adventurous, anti-establishment. When you fly Virgin Atlantic, you're not just buying a plane ticket, you're buying into Branson's image. The man who challenges British Airways, the man who crosses oceans in balloons, the underdog who refuses to play by the rules. And it works because Branson himself is on the line. He's not hiring stunt doubles, he's not faking it. When the boat sinks, he's in the water. When the balloon crashes, he's in the basket. His employees can see that their CEO is willing to risk everything for the brand. That creates loyalty you can't buy. But let's be honest about the cost. Branson admits in his autobiography that he's had at least 75 near-death experiences. In 1980, he almost fell down a gorge on his private island. In 1987, he pulled the wrong ripcord while skydiving and nearly died when his parachute detached. In 2004, he bungee jumped off Victoria Falls and came up with blood streaming down his face. In 2016, he went over his bicycle handlebars and cracked his cheek, tore his shoulder, and nearly went off a cliff. At some point, you have to ask, is it worth it? Branson is 74 years old now and has spent his entire adult life one mistake away from death. He has created a business model that requires him to constantly risk his life to stay relevant. That's not sustainable. Eventually, the luck runs out. So what's the lesson here? In the 1980s and 90s, Branson's strategy was genius because media was centralized. If you did something crazy enough, you would get on the evening news, and 20 million people would see it. Free advertising. But today, the game has completely changed. Now you don't need to risk your life to get attention. You just need to understand algorithms. Mr. Beast gets billions of views by giving away money and creating spectacles. But he's not jumping out of balloons. Tesla became the world's most valuable car company with zero advertising budget. Not because Elon risked his life, but because he mastered Twitter controversy and created products people couldn't stop talking about. The principle is the same. Get attention without paying for ads, but the execution is different. In Branson's era, you needed one massive stunt that traditional media couldn't ignore. Today, you need consistent content that social media algorithms want to promote. Branson risked death once a year for headlines. Modern brands create viral moments every single day. But here's what hasn't changed. People still respond to authenticity and risk. They just define risk differently now. Branson risked his physical life. Today's entrepreneurs risk their reputation, their privacy, their mental health by putting everything online. Their currency is still attention. The cost is still personal sacrifice. Only the platform has changed. So if you're building a business today, the question isn't should I jump off a building? The question is, what am I willing to risk to cut through the noise? Maybe it's radical transparency about your failures. Maybe it's taking a controversial stance your competitors won't touch. Maybe it's building in public and showing every mistake. The medium changes. The principle stays the same. Attention goes to those willing to put something real on the line. Richard Branson proved you don't need $1 billion ad budget if you're willing to risk everything. The platform has changed, but the game hasn't.